Welcome to the Mike Kellar Show. Coach, thanks for being here today.
I appreciate having me.
First thing, Coach, your thoughts on Saturday scrimmage?
It was good for us. It's what we needed to be out there in the heat of the day. As you saw, we didn't tackle. It was mostly a procedural deal. We ran a lot of plays, made a lot of mistakes. A lot of not having enough guy here in the kick game, not having this guy in on offense, defense guy. All those things that happen in game one, game two that you see all over the country. I tell the staff all the time, we're not the NFL. We don't get exhibition games, so we don't get to work those kinks out. When we're working them out, those games count. So to be able to do that, it was more like the theory of an NFL exhibition game than it was anything. Played a lot of guys, got to see a lot of people in a lot of different situations. It was what we needed, hopefully, to help prepare us for our season.
Because that was the second one you've had of the fall. How important are those?
I think they're critical. When I first started this as an OC years ago, the head coach I worked for, Doug Sams, always thought you needed 2, if not 3 scrimmages in the fall. And we were always pretty good with him, early in the year. We'd watch other teams that we'd play, and they would make a lot of not have enough people, a lot of procedural mistakes. And with Coach, we were pretty good. And then with Coach Luckhart, we had better teams, and he stressed that as well at Cal. And then I've kind of tried to adapt that into my own coaching philosophy. It drives you crazy because you go to those scrimmages and tackles in the backfield. This guy's lined up in a legal formation, and there's things that you cover and practice every day and constantly complain about every day. If they show up in a scrimmage like that, then you could point to the team and say, see, I've been telling you. It's almost like talking to your children.
Now you move from the fall camp into prepping week, or to the prep week. How do you get your guys to transition from the fall camp now to prepping?
Players, they're tired of playing against each other. And to be quite honest, I'm tired of it.
No, I'm 100% sure.
Mike Tomlin said today, Steeler versus Steeler football, Pioneer versus Pioneer football. I think we've had about enough of that. So it's good. Guys generally get excited for the ball games. We're not like baseball and basketball. I tell them that all the time. We get 11 of these a year. We practice way more than we play. The other sports generally play more than they practice. We're the other way around. So there'll be an excitement for ball games.
And now shifting to this week, Emory Henry, they went 5-6 last year, 4-5 in the SAC. The preseason number 10 in the SAC. They got a new head coach this year. Quentin Hunter, their old head coach, retired. Hunter was the OC last year. Expectations out of them, and do you see much change from last year?
Obviously they had a coach retire late in the summer. The OC takes over. Their DC resigned, and they got a new DC. But from what everything, first games were really, you're guessing anyway. You get video, you watch it all spring, you watch it all summer, and you do something to prep. But opening games, the team you got to worry about the most, just like all of them, but especially opening games, is your team. So I don't know how much they'll change. I do know the South Atlantic Conference. I was head coach in that league for 2 years. That is a very, very, very good league. I know that they got a bunch of returning starters on both sides of the ball. Some really dynamic guys. Kick returner is an excellent player. They got some guys that can go over the top. Their run game will be good. Their line was very well coached and will continue to be well coached with Mike Compton. I think they're a very, very good team. They got a quarterback who's played a lot of ball games, and then their defense. I think 10 of the 11 or 9 of the 11 are returning.
And you're correct.
And they've had a couple of transfers who are actually on their 2 deep list that ahead of guys who are returning. So I think it's going down there on the road. It's going to be a very formidable foe.
You talk about those guys coming back. They had 10 on the preseason All-SAC Mountain Division team. One of the transfers they did get, St. Francis transfer Jordan Jackson at the running back spot. Is that difficult when you're watching a team from last year, but now you got to shift and watch a film from a kid that a completely different school, completely different system?
A lot of time on film, especially early film, you're trying to learn the schematics anyway. The only reason you're trying to learn them is so we could prep it and practice. The game's the game. You may prep for a certain front or a certain coverage and never see that. I always joke that they're practicing too right now. So,
Same thing.
So things could change. Players, as your season goes on, you get an idea for, okay, this particular player, this are his strengths and weaknesses. You could attack them based on this player. That comes more into your thought process or game planning as the season goes on. Right now, man, they're all, as they say in the coach world, they're all birds. They're all just in spots, and you got to block them and tackle them no matter who they got.
Now shifting to us, went 6-4 last year, 5-4 in the MEC, second straight winning season, picked 5th in the MEC poll. You would know better than anybody, quarterback position, how important it is. Anthony Garrett's back. The junior will start once again. expectations out of him?
I mean, I think Anthony's great. You know, he came in as a freshman, very raw, and had a lot of success early.
He started 6 games that year.
Yeah, I mean, and I think for his first start against Charleston, I think he threw for 300 and some yards.
Yeah, it was
and
a bunch.
Yeah, had a then struggled the next week, then was good the following week. Kind of your normal ebb and flow for a freshman. Talent-wise, he's great. He's smart, knows the offense, team leader. All those things are good. He just got to get an inner belief in himself and go out and make that transition. I mean, back in my early coaching days, Jared Ferguson and Brian Harmon, I saw them that sophomore year or that freshman year how they struggled, and then the next year where they were at. Yeah. I mean, I remember Brian here, he was first team all conference as a sophomore, and his junior year he had a couple bad games early, and we had a play called, and I got on him in the booth, and he came back and he threw, and it was like that moment from then on.
It just clicked.
It clicked.
Yep.
And I mean, it took a lot of little moments to lead to that big moment. And then he was player of the year as a junior, player of the year as a senior. Those guys in their school's Hall of Fame, Kevin McCabe, Joe Ruggiero, all these guys I've coached, Pete Lollick, who are there, my own son, who had these great, these careers, and James Harris, player of the year. They all had those moments where no one believed in them until they believed in themselves a little bit, and that's the next step for him. And it could just be a moment in time. When it does happen, he's got a chance to be special.
Yeah, and his weapons include Tariq Miller's back. He's the leading receiver from last year. Dylan Day gets the start. Nassim Pacheco, the transfer from Fairmont. They played at Ventura last year. Arnett Thornhill from Presbyterian, and the freshman Cordell Lewis. Just your comfortability with the wide receiver room right now.
Well, there's a lot of talent in that room. Them playing together and becoming a unit is yet to be seen. I mean, are they got the right size and speed and skill set and catch the ball? All those things are great. Having played in games and played together, because then what the quarterback does, he goes to who he trusts.
Yeah, 100%.
So when those guys get in games and start making plays for him, then that ball's going to get spread around. Then we got a chance to be really good.
Yep.
If we get one-dimensional, the ball's going to the same one guy or two guys all the time, then you're in for a long year.
And as I mentioned, Cordell Lewis, a freshman. What's made it noticeable for you to put him in that rotation as a freshman?
Well, him and Emory, they could run.
Yeah.
They could run, and I mean, I've always been a guy who I believe in talent. And those kids, I don't care if they're 10, they can run. They're tall. They catch the ball really well. Their talent is high. Really high. Like if it wasn't for everyone looking in the transfer portal, we don't get high school kids like that, So we're excited about them in their future, but they're raw. They haven't played in games and nerves and going through all those things. But that's our job as coaches. We got to coach them up a little bit. We got to hug them. We got to kick them. We got to do those type of things. But those guys have the ability to play. And
then look at the running back room. Xavier Woods back. You add Marquand Rucker and Jeremiah King.
Yeah.
Expectations out of that, because you lose Alfred Minger. I mean, I think it was 3 straight seasons, 700 yards rushing. How do you shift now to the running backs?
Well, Alfred has he had to have a foot surgery, and he'll redshirt and be back, next year at this time, God willing. And but we talked about it before. Running back room is generally always going to be kind of deep. Jeremiah got every West Virginia rushing record in the world, especially in that Harrison, Marion County area, or North Central area. He was great. He's got a chance to be really good. Mark Rucker, kid transfer from WU, Tyler Consolidated, rushed for a gazillion yards in high school, got a chance to be good. And then Xavier Wood, he had a good year a year ago. He was a 2-time transfer coming to us, Western Kentucky, Virginia Tech, and he was special a year ago, or good a year ago. Got a chance to be special this year. So, in that group, the best thing about that group is how unselfish they've been with the carries and they know they take a physical beat. The most physical position in sports is running back, and they know they take that physical beat, and they ain't afraid to put their arm up and let the other guy come in and carry the ball. So we always have a fresh runner.
Yep. And then now finally the offensive line. You got 3 starters back from last year, 4 guys who played significant amount of snaps. Your thoughts on them as the season now starts?
Well, you're going to start a young guy, and when Ian could have came back, he graduated. In 3 years, got his master's degree in a year, or 2 years. So he got his undergrad and his master's in 4 years.
Yeah.
And this would have been his 5th year with the COVID and the whole deal. I would love to have him back, because then everyone would have been more in a natural position. We've got starters returning, but guys have had to.
Yeah, like Hawkins goes from left tackle to center now.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And then then we put Wade out tackle. We put Collier from guard. From tackle to guard, and then Roy's got that right side pretty much on lockdown. And then you got a young guy in there in Hogan. So we're excited about that group. they've really improved. But there are times where their communication stuff they get lost because they're thinking, oh well, when I was in this position I did this, and in my mind it's the same, right? It's the same, but you're just in a different spot. But in their minds
it's completely different.
Yeah, exactly.
And now looking at the defense, we talked about it. I mean, in the past couple of weeks about the experience coming back. I mean, it's top to bottom, every position group, it's there. Pretty much 9 of the 11 guys from last year that started are back. 14 total who produced. How key can that be leading into the season?
Oh, it's critical. I mean, and I tease the staff when I first went to Cal as the OC in 04. I believe we led the league in scoring 04 and 05. 06 may have been our best offense, or 05, and those were all good teams. But the 07 team that went 13-1 was the worst offensive team we had. Now we had a great quarterback, a great tackle. We had some really good players on that team, but we led the country in defense. We led the country in scoring defense, total defense, and rushing defense. Well, that's how you won all the games, because it was, we could go out and score 17. Defense was going to hold them. Now that was a moment in time. 2007, the rules and the offenses have evolved a little bit.
Different now.
If you could hold it to that would be great. But if you got a great defense, you're in every game. If you got a great defense that can run the ball, football's football. Everyone's RPO and doing all these cute little things. But if you block and tackle them, you're going to be all right.
And then Brandon Penn's back. He was a first teamer a couple of years ago. How big is that to add him back?
Well, it's huge. I mean, every NFL scout who's been around, is the first question to me is about Brandon. When you have a guy like that who's a sophomore going to his junior year, doesn't get to play his junior year, and then all of a sudden he's back. Well, that helps everyone's comfort level. Most of all mine.
And also, notice on the 2 deep, a lot of freshmen. Chances that they're in the rotation. You look at linebacker, DB spot, defensive line. Just what's made it so clear to you that they're ready to play so early?
Well, one, they got to be. You're really looking at, when that first class came in with Penn and Sterling and that whole crew that you're talking about, they came in during COVID. So keeping them here was a minor miracle. For anyone to keep their team together.
Especially in the transfer portal era.
Exactly right. Well, at the same time, NIL happened. And Texas and Ohio State's NIL program's a little bit better than
just a little bit.
And then you go, you got the transfer, the transfer portal. So all those things hit at one time. So that class, they managed to stay together. The next 2 years, your recruiting kind of changed. You could see it. You can see it in our numbers. Like these kids were transfers. This guy came in, he went that class. We had more of those than we really had high school kids. This year here, because we have to replace, that whole crew of that 2020 recruiting class, we really went out and got a bunch of really good freshmen. And I don't. You say what makes me sure they're ready to play? I'm not sure they're ready to play, but they got the talent and the ability to play. They just got to go through the growing pains of games in order to be ready to play.
And now, looking at the game, you've opened the last 2 years on the road. You've won not easily, but mightily in the past 2 years. What's it going to take for you guys to do it once again this year?
I mean, they got to play well together. I think both those teams you're talking about helped us a little bit win the way we did. The Quincy and Northwood games. I don't know that Emory and Henry is going to do that. They got a veteran group. They are a good team. I remember when I left the PSAC and went to the SAC as a head coach, I looked at the league and went, we were top dogs in the PSAC, and I'm thinking, we could. When I got down there, the speed in the South, was a little bit different. So some of the things you're seeing on tape, like you read about them and go, oh, they're 5 and 6. They're picked 10th, and you think all these things. But when you watch them, they don't run around like that. I mean, they run around really well. They got one corner that's a pro hopeful. They got 3 safeties that are all very, very good. Very good at linebacker. D-line is excellent. They got a bunch of movements. They got a slot and outside receiver to excellent transfer tailback, quarterback that's been through it, and the line may be the most impressive position they got. So I don't think of it in those terms. I think of it as, okay, what do we got to do to go out there and put our best effort forward and come out, on top that day. So that's kind of where we're at. I thought we had a productive scrimmage on Saturday, even though I didn't think we played great in all 3 phases. We had a good practice last night. The young guys got a scrimmage and do some stuff, and we're going to deal with, it's supposed to be 94 today, and our guys are going to have to deal with some heat issues today and tomorrow. So in all those ways, those are ways to help us prep for Emory and Henry.
All right. Well, Coach, we appreciate you coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks for watching the Mike Kellar Show.